Alright, this is Mr. BDA here, and let's talk about the Teofimo Lopez vs Shakur Stevenson bout taking place near the end of the month. Now, Lopez is going to be defending his undisputed junior welterweight championship against the undefeated Stevenson, and the champion stands as a 3-1 underdog. More on that later. Now, Lopez and Stevenson are two quick-fisted boxers with cat-like reflexes. They're both very physically gifted. Now, I'm not going to be including any ESPN or top-ranked videos here because of copyright issues, but I will be posting, perhaps, film studies on this channel or on our free Patreon page, so make sure to check out our free Patreon page. The link is in the description below. Now, Lopez is more of an improvisational boxer. He likes to fire gazelle hooks, he likes to use his hand speed to punch out opponents, and occasionally he'll throw a series of throwaway shots, quick throwaway shots, in order to land a big one. Stevenson is more of a controlled boxer. He relies on his unconventional upper body movement to make his opponents miss, and oftentimes his footwork, much to our, fans' detriment. But he's mostly a counterpuncher. Now, the most apparent point coming into this bout is that Lopez doesn't do well against guys like Shakur Stevenson, that is, elusive opponents that make him commit first. Now, we saw that in 2024 against Jermaine Ortiz and in 2022 against Sandor Martin. But let's also remember that he struggled against Eddie Tato's jab as well. This was a few years ago. And then afterwards against the rangy Masayoshi Nakatani. And neither of those guys are movers. So it's not just the movement that troubles Teofimo Lopez, it's a good jab as well. And this mostly has to do with the fact that he uses the Philly shell stance, which kind of leaves him squared up at first and vulnerable to the straight lead hand. And remember, Stevenson has a good southpaw jab whenever he decides to use it. As for Stevenson, he is more defensively consistent than Teofimo Lopez, so even when he stinks the joint out like he did against Nakatila and against De Los Santos, he still manages to limit the amount of punishment that he takes. Just take a look at the CompuBox numbers and you will see that he's a very slippery fish. But then this also brings us to Teofimo Lopez's defense. He's bad at cutting the ring off, that is true. And one of the main problems for him is that he lacks a guard, and that impedes him from applying consistent pressure. The second problem is that he fires his shots from too far away, and this allows his slippery foes to either step back or turn him. Now, I also want to add something here, that even though Lopez is a better and more accomplished fighter than Stevenson's last opponent, which was William Zepeda, Zepeda is a better pressure fighter who can throw approximately 1,000 punches per fight. So that's exactly the type of style that you need to beat a guy like Stevenson. And Zepeda is a guy who tailored that style of a pressure fighter throughout the years, so he's sort of become comfortable with it. Lopez, at this stage in his career, hasn't accomplished that. But still, let's flip the coin here and let's take a look at some of the positive points for Teofimo Lopez, is that despite his weaknesses as a pressure fighter, Lopez's reflexes usually allow him to avoid major damage. He's got feline reflexes, which probably explains why some of his opponents refuse to engage. In other words, Stevenson has better defense, that's true, but Lopez's ain't too shabby either. This is what makes me wonder whether Stevenson can dominate Lopez, because Lopez is very fast and he does a good job of avoiding counters even when he misses. And so far, Stevenson tends to become ultra hesitant whenever he fights people who are as quick as he is. And now that brings us to what type of fight will this be? Most people are expecting a boring fight, and I'll tell you this, I'm interested in the fight because it involves two of the best fighters in and around that weight division. And they're both very talented, like I said in the beginning of the video, and then on top of that, what's at stake? That makes this fight intriguing. But I do agree that this is probably going to be an uneventful bout, meaning that there's going to be very few punches thrown and even less punches landed. Now, if you take a look at the punch stat numbers, Lopez and Stevenson, they tend to throw approximately the same amount of shots, unless they're fighting come-forward boxers or boxers whose main line of defense involves their guard. That allows guys like Stevenson and Lopez to let their hands go more a little bit. But that's why I believe that this is going to look more like the Stevenson vs De Los Santos bout, because both guys are very quick and neither one is going to be willing to commit that much. Now, when it comes to Lopez, some people who are picking him are saying that we shouldn't go against him because he's overcome the odds in the past and that he will do so again in January. You can't question Lopez's courage because he did take on Lomachenko back in 2020, and that was when Lomachenko, a lot of people had him in the #1 spot of the pound-for-pound list. And then 3 years later, he takes on Josh Taylor, the undisputed junior welterweight champion, and Lopez didn't ask any questions, he just said, I won those fights. But then again, there are asterisks next to those wins. Let's admit it, Lomachenko's shoulder was injured going into the Lopez bout. Now, Lopez said after the fight that, well, I was injured too, he said he had a broken toe. But see, that's the thing though, how bad was the injury? Because a busted toe is a different degree of injury from a busted shoulder. And then on top of that, the Taylor win hasn't really aged all that well because Taylor hadn't fought in over a year when he took on Teofimo Lopez in 2023. And the last time he'd fought, he'd looked horrible in winning a highly controversial decision against Jack Catterall in the beginning of 2022. Now, of course, we didn't know that back in 2023. I mean, we didn't know how far gone he was. Subsequently, it's been confirmed that Taylor really was far gone. I mean, he ended up losing the Catterall rematch after the Lopez loss. And then last year, 2025, he ended up losing to Escau Esuman over at the welterweight division. So the question then becomes, how good is Teofimo Lopez? The flip side to that coin is, as you can tell, we're really analyzing this from all angles. Stevenson's never fought anyone as good or as fast as Lopez. And I mean, okay, maybe De Los Santos was as fast as Lopez, but he certainly wasn't as seasoned as Lopez is right now. And look at how Stevenson fought De Los Santos. I mean, the guy was terrified. And again, I can't show you too many clips or any clips of the De Los Santos fight. I'm gonna probably be doing it in another video. But for the moment, I want to mention something about that bout. Many criticized Stevenson, and rightfully so, for that horrible performance. But then there was a minority that tried to blame De Los Santos as well, saying, well, why didn't he engage? Why was he scared as well? If you rewatch that fight, you'll notice that whenever Stevenson feints or attacks, De Los Santos was usually holding his ground, meaning he would maybe lean back or change levels. And every once in a while, he would take a little step back. But then you would see that when De Los Santos would feint or attack, Stevenson would jump back or run away. Literally jump back. Rewatch that fight. The guy, every other 10 seconds, he's jumping back and leaping back, and his feet are rising a couple of inches from the ground as he jumps back. So De Los Santos was actually very composed in there, standing in front of Shakur Stevenson, whereas Shakur Stevenson was the guy who was leaping back like a rabbit. And there's not much you can do against someone who's running around and leaping like a rabbit whenever you try to punch him. So yeah, Stevenson does deserve the bulk of the blame for that sorry excuse of a fight. And then afterwards came the excuses. Oh, I was injured. Well, what's the proof? Did he undergo some sort of surgery or medical treatment? We don't know that. Sounds like excuses. Sounds just like, well, I gotta say something to cover up the fact that I looked horrible. And by the way, he also looked horrible against Nakatila in 2021. What was the excuse there? Because in fact, Shakur Stevenson said it after the fight. I got hit with a big right hand, or I forget which shot, and he said, I didn't like it. So there was no injury there. He just simply couldn't deal with somebody who had a good straight rear hand. So at the end of the day, I am leaning towards Stevenson to win this fight because I just think he does what he does better than Lopez. In other words, Lopez tends to be very improvisational. There doesn't seem to be a set plan, whereas Stevenson seems to be more consistent with his performances. But again, I agree with the people who are picking Lopez. He cannot be counted out. I mean, he's fought better opposition. He's just as fast, if not faster, than Stevenson. And that's the other thing, the power. A lot of people point out to Lopez's power and say that it was overrated. And I agree. I think even at 135, his power was overrated. But guess what? He happens to hit harder than Stevenson does. And my mind can't help but wander off to the De Los Santos-Stevenson fight and how terrified Stevenson was of De Los Santos. And again, like I said, against Nakatila as well. So my question to you guys is, will Stevenson win, but once again under-deliver with his performances? Because he tends to promise belt to ass, and I'm gonna beat the crap out of this dude, and then he doesn't do it. Like against Hartunonian, against Conceição. He hit Conceição with multiple low blows, by the way, couldn't put the guy out. And he missed weight on top of that too. Shakur Stevenson missed the weight, so he was a stronger guy, a more refreshed fighter, hitting the guy in the balls and couldn't put a dent in him. So I'm thinking, really, this guy tends to promise to deliver beatings, and he just said that too in this press conference. He told Teofimo Sr., hey, don't throw in the towel. Like, believe me, I don't think many people are worried about having to throw in the towel for Lopez in that one. But then again, I have to wonder, if you look at how Lomachenko fought Lopez, once he was able to get warmed up and get going, he started backing Lopez up. And I'm thinking, if Stevenson is better than Lomachenko, and he certainly is younger and stronger, shouldn't he be trying to replicate what Lomachenko did? Or is he gonna just try to win the fight one punch at a time and then leap away? And then the other question is, what do you guys think about Lopez? Right now, like I said, 3-1 underdog. Do you think he's a live underdog in this one? Are people overrating Shakur Stevenson? Will Teofimo Lopez pull off another upset? Guys, let us know what you think in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.